Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great day, great afternoon, great night, just a great time in general when you're watching this video. Today's video I want to do a review on a show that basically no one I know has ever heard of. I literally don't think I've ever heard or talked to anyone really about this show and can't really seem to get anyone into it. It's 7 episodes, so I can totally get it. No one really thought it would go far, and currently we're technically 4 or 5 years after this show got released, so I don't really see season 2 coming, but honestly I really love this show and I wish they took more into it because I can definitely understand the feelings of the main character, and I really liked a lot of the characters in the show, and it was just really interesting to me. The show is called I Am Not Okay With This. It has the actress who plays as Beverly Marsh in the newer It series, the girl, the younger version of Beverly in the It series. She's in the first movie, Chapter 1. I wish I remembered her name, but she is a really great actress. Honestly, it was kind of funny when I was watching this. I actually kind of kept thinking of her as her Beverly character, because in some ways they kind of have the same mannerisms. 7 episodes, they're about 20 to 25 minutes each, 28 for 1 or 2 of them, but honestly you can finish the show in about 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours. I watched this twice yesterday, once by myself to make these notes, and then once with my roommate, and she really liked it. It's got, the female lead is basically, the best way to put it is she is a questioning lesbian. If not, she doesn't know her preference, and there is very much scenes where she is like totally, giving fuck me eyes to her female best friend and not really towards any guys, and she seems to be more selling herself on men than she's actually like interested in them. It aired in 2020 on Netflix, and like I said, we're about 4 or 5 years after this came out, and there's still no season 2, and I don't even think I've heard about season 2, and if it has been talked about, it either got canceled or something. But it also, one thing I forgot to mention, one of the other kind of main characters is the same actor who plays as young Stan in the new It series, which is funny because, both of them were essentially in the same movie, and now they're in the same show, and they actually play as love interest-ish in this show versus in the movie, which is, just funny. We get to see them acting more intimately than they were in that show as friends. Episode 1 starts with the main character, Sydney. I don't know when you learn her name, but I watched the show with subtitles, so I very much relied on subtitles sometimes to remember, if not get, a character's name. It starts out with her walking covered in blood. We're not exactly sure what happened, but, it's just, why is she all of a sudden covered in blood? Like, we have no idea what's going on, because it looks like a show that is just about a teenage girl's high school experience, but she has powers. So why the fuck is she all of a sudden covered in blood? And she says a really funny line that begins her narrating throughout the show, which is, "Dear diary, go fuck yourself." And it's just so funny listening to all the teenage angst that comes out in this show, because it's just funny to me, because I either remember myself being like that, or during my days volunteering, just remembering kids that were like that. It's like, I get it, the world sucks, I really want to help you, let's be a little bit happier, but you can't obviously control that, and it's just better to be there for them, if not just laugh it off, and or even just continue it a little bit, because sometimes they just want a little bit of that angst back so they can feel comfortable around you. You never know. So she gets off the bus and gives this whole monologue next about how she's not special and she's just in this bland town. And it's very typical of a lot of stories for a lot of characters with powers to have already felt like they were small before they got them, only to slightly feel bigger once they get them. This doesn't really happen with her. there is a theory that that would have happened in season 2 once we get to the end. As of what you experience, it doesn't really seem like she is that girl. She talks about living in the middle of bumfuck PA, which is what I like to say a lot whenever I'm driving through really notoriously just middle of nowhere places, but that's basically what she says. She either does say that or that's basically what she says, because she's like, everything is terrible here. We have like the most polluted air and shit. And it's just so funny listening to her talk about PA, because I very much have feelings where I'm like, oh, fuck PA. But her therapist is the one that starts her on this narrating / writing in a journal. Ironic, I did a video about journaling. But she is supposed to be doing all this writing, journaling to try and feel better because her dad killed himself last spring. So it's like, I think fall in the show, if not the next spring. So it's either less than a year or exactly a year since her dad killed himself, and things have just not been doing well between her mom and her brother. Yeah, he killed himself by hanging. He basically, as you go through the show, he basically has been saying a lot of the same things that the main character, Sydney, has been saying. And she's like, oh my god, am I going to kill myself too? Like, am I experiencing the same thing as my dad? And she always talked about feeling the same as him and being really understood by him versus her mother. And that's just kind of the theme that goes about as she is describing her father throughout the show. And we go from her doing this monologue between that to the therapist to then to just this random sex ed class. And that's where we meet the dumb jock and the best friend. The dumb jock, incidentally, in the next scene you find out that the best friend of Sydney, Dina, so Dina is the best friend, the dumb jock is Brad. Dina fucks Brad and starts dating him. And of course, Sydney hates that. I mean, I would hate that too, because he's a dumb jock and he is super fucking annoying. You know, all that fucking testosterone where they're like, oh, football's the best. No, shut the fuck up. It's a sport. It's not that cool. If you told me, like, I still tell people I can kick a soccer ball a whole soccer field, or at least I tell them I used to be able to do that, because I really could when I was younger and I played a ton of soccer. But I only do that when sports come up, because it's just a thing to talk about, because it just comes up. But I'm not like these guys where they're like, oh my god, I used to do X, Y, and Z in fucking high school, and then you look at them and it's like, you work at Taco Bell. It's like, who really gives a fuck about high school now? Oh, and this is also the same scene, because it's a random sex ed class, so we get to meet the dumb jock, because he does the dumb jock joke, and we basically get to see the first set of fuck me eyes that Sid gives to her best friend. I mean, this girl, like, full on is just staring at her and smiles when she turns back to look at her, and I'm just like, man, that, it's adorable, but it's also so funny, because Sydney just looks like she is hiding, or at least trying to hide so hard that she really likes Dina. They both became friends because they were the new kids when they came to school, which I thought was kind of funny, and that's cute that that even happened, because that means that they were able to become close with each other very quickly because no one else wanted to be around them, which is unfortunate. I don't know why people don't like the new kid. I was always the new kid friend. Like, I went and go and talked to just about everyone because I never wanted people to feel left out. I'm still like that. If I notice a lot of people are being silent, I very much am an engager and trying to get people involved. So I never understood why people always left the quote-unquote new kid or weird kid alone. I don't get it. Sydney is a big-time loner, and she basically describes like her friendship with Dina as like, if I wasn't friends with her, I wouldn't be friends with anyone else. And like, totally felt girl. Like, I don't like, I like doing a lot of things by myself versus trying to get a million people involved. I'll just go do it and then tell you all about it. Yeah, we basically, this is when the intercut thoughts of Sydney, and you get to hear about her jealousy. There's PDA between Dina and Brad at this diner, which the mom works at, funny enough. It's very interesting that you would uproot your whole life to go work at a diner. Like, I know that pay is not good enough, but I totally understand people are in dire situations. I am of the mind where I'm like, I really hope that she is really not having to do all the stuff she's talked about. Like, I really hope there is some level of life insurance with the husband, because otherwise, or his military pension because he was a Marine, because wow, it's just unfortunate because she never gets to be, the mom never gets to be at home, never really gets to take care of the kids, and Sydney basically has to be the brother's mom in a lot of ways. They do have a fight about it later, and I'll get to that. So they keep kind of talking. Sydney, Dina, and Brad, they went to a diner after school where the mom works. Sydney is basically, this is when her first real flex of her power happens, or at least we're not sure, and she makes Brad's nose bleed, and that is foreshadowing. He very much gets really scared of having a nosebleed, which, fair. I don't know if you've ever had a crazy nosebleed before. I have. It's definitely a very scary thing because you never know why or how much blood there will be. Then Sid is leaving the diner, going back home, and that's when we meet Stan. Ironically, his name is fucking Stan. I didn't even realize that. Stanley Uris, and now he's Stanley Lewis, I think. Or is it Bradley Lewis for Brad? Yeah, Stanley Barber is Stan's last. Barber is Stanley's last name. Stan is very much this like zero fuck dude who is also Sid's neighbor and is a big stoner, and he just seems like a pretty chill dude. He likes a lot of hipstery music and he's very fashionable. You could call him a metrosexual, but it's funny, my roommate later in one of the episodes, she's like, he is definitely bi, if anything. And it was just funny because I was like, man, I am glad I'm not the only one that thought that. However, he really only goes after girls in the show, so who knows, maybe he's denying it, who knows. The mom and the sister, I kind of described that a bit, they very much fight a lot. And you can tell it's because the daughter chose the dad over the mom in a lot of situations, wanted to spend more time with him, and when he died, that very much cut them off from each other quite a bit. They didn't really have a lot connecting them already, so this just really frayed what was already there. We get to see more of, you know, her relationship with her brother, where we find out his name is Liam, and she gave him the nickname Goob, which I still don't understand what that has to do with anything. Goob, like, it's not boog, like backwards, it's not boog, so I don't get it. She has a really good relationship with her brother, terrible relationship with her mother. The brother you can see throughout this show is very much like a silent griever. Like, a lot of the things he does towards his feelings about his dad are always quiet, and I made a note somewhere in here. The brother is very much like this because the mom and the sister are clearly vocal about their grievings toward their dad, while he feels, at least what I can see and hear, that he feels very quiet about everything because everyone else is so loud about it. He doesn't feel like he has the space to give his emotions about things. Like, there's a scene later where his hedgehog dies and he can't even say anything there because he's clearly quietly upset about his dad passing. We find out that they moved a lot. We also find out that the little brother is bullied a ton. We get some more ideas on Sydney's furthering insecurities. She has these thigh zits that she feels weird about. She's clearly in an upset moment already, and the water keeps dripping, and we get another moment of her powers, or at least what we may think, and she snaps and just yells at the water and it stops. Now, it's really interesting how we can see a lot of this has to do with puberty, but it can also be something that has to do with mental illness. It can have something to do with grieving. These are very much telltale signs between the arguing, the manifesting insecurities for puberty, the varying things that happen throughout the show, and just the general metaphor that her telekinesis, which is what she has, is a commonality for people that have issues, they often will have psychic powers. Now, weirdly, she very much has this thing against masturbating for some reason, and she eats peanut butter to cope with it. I don't really get that, but you know, you do you if that's what works for you, I guess, is what I'd say. I don't know. The mom is definitely an alcoholic enough. Like, she's primarily at work or drinking to go to sleep. And in my opinion, that would be like really scraping alcoholic behavior. Because like, if you're not working, which would be the drug that kept you going, technically, then she is at home consuming another drug. So you see, and she tries to open up about herself to her mom, and her mom fucking cuts her deep. I don't really want to, I'm gonna try and be vague with my details still, even with spoilers. I wanted, like, you can see that Sydney is trying to talk to her mom about the things that are beginning to happen, but her mom, like, cuts her deep, and it causes her to spiral more, and that's when we definitely get confirmed she has powers, and she cracks a hole open in the wall. And that's when we go to episode 2, and she basically is trying to convince herself that it's just a weak foundation of the house that did it, which, no, that doesn't just happen. Your house doesn't, when there's no fucking wind, that doesn't just happen. So she tries to cover it up, and it's really funny, and that's when she leaves her room and we get to meet Liam having a hedgehog. She leaves to go to school and we get Stan picking her up. It's really awkward between them, but Stan picks her up and takes her to school. Her mom had previously asked her, I didn't write this down, her mom had previously asked her to get groceries, and she was trying to figure out how she would get that home again. So she tries to ask Dina, which is apparently who took her to get the groceries before, but Dina's going to hang out with Brad. So she's feeling Sid is feeling very left alone by people and ditched by people, so she's feeling more upset. And she ends up, after she leaves school, just blasting a sign over by throwing a rock at it. And you can see she is simultaneously losing and gaining control with this power in some ways. She goes and gets help from Stan, who works at a bowling alley, and he takes the longest 20 you will ever see in your life. Like, he literally says he's going to take a 20 and then is gone for the rest of the episode. And that had to be like a whole day because it was night when everything else was happening. So when she is trying to get said help, he takes her to the grocery store, and she ends up having another episode because her mom didn't give her enough money. She is very clearly just stressed out, doesn't really know how to handle a lot of things. She is very upset by her dad dying, and it doesn't seem like she really feels like she has a great outlet to let it out. And we find out through her and Stan smoking weed together that his dad's a trucker and is basically never home, and he's always having to take care of himself. And just, they share mutual moments where you can clearly see a bond building between Stan and her, but it's like, it's almost like you want the build more than they do. But you will see as you get to the end of the show how much Sid actually does care for Stan, but not in a relationship way. She wants a friend, not a relationship. Later the next day, we get to see Stan. He's a dealer. He sells weed to people. One's his cousin, but he does sell weed to people. Oh, Stan tries to open her perspective. It was taking me a second to read what the fuck, because I wrote in kind of shorthand. Stan's a very retro dude. We get to see more of his vinyls and stuff like that. He's just a very down-to-earth or out-of-earth kind of dude, you know? They smoke again. Sid is very much finding that weed will be the thing to help her feel better, which is kind of funny, because we get to see her doing a lot of things to self-medicate versus actually trying to get help from other people, which, you know, word, I feel that. That's when they talk about their insecurities with each other. We learn about his back knee, which is his insecurity, and her, you know, zits again. And that's when they end up having sex. It's not confirmed-ish until episode 3, and that's when Dina is like, you guys had sex, you know, that usual thing. And it's just so funny because Sid is very much like, I did not like that. I did not want this to happen. We are good friends. Don't like penis. Not for me. Sid eventually pulls out from Dina that she was invited to a party that Sid was definitely not invited to. And they end up leaving the diner because the diner is their place, you know, comfortable with mom and everything like that. As they're walking back, we get an awkward moment between Sid and Stan where we get to see that the vibes are very much Stan is virgin, just had sex, really attached to you vibes. And Sid is very much like, oh no, I can see that he likes me vibes. And it's just really funny. And we find out Stan's gonna be at the party, and while Sid is on the way home, because Dina had left at this point, and she was told, because they were still close to the diner, she was told to take her brother home from the diner. And while she was taking him home is when she confronts Liam's bully. I mentioned the bully already, but she tries to like be, you know, the older sibling and almost tries to even use her powers. Well, does try to use her powers, but they don't work. And it's seeming like she can't fully control them yet, but you know, when she does, it doesn't go well. It just ends up kind of leaving this kind of weird taste in everyone's mouth. And so they get home and we find out that the dad had killed himself in the basement, and everyone kind of avoids the basement and doesn't really want to talk about it. And one little note I want to add in here, now that we're on season 3 and you've really gotten to see the world, everything is just fucking stuck out of time. And that's something that happens with a lot of towns that are in the middle of nowhere, is they become very stuck out of time where they're not getting as upgraded as everything else because not everyone's coming in there, so not everyone wants to see shit there, so they don't get a lot of reason to upgrade. And it's just very weird to see everyone looking like they're in the 70s and 80s, but you see like iPhones and stuff like that. So it's just funny. I've gone to a couple of schools like that for work where it's like, where the fuck am I? Like, I thought this was the 21st century. What the fuck is happening? Kind of like that. Oh, so Sid finally relents to going down the stairs for her brother because her brother wanted to do a puzzle. Her brother and her dad used to do puzzles every day after breakfast, and I can feel that. That's a family moment. But the brother is very gentle about asking, but you can still tell that the brother is also scared himself about going to the basement. So he asks his sister, and she's going down, and she just starts seeing his stuff, and she just snaps. But instead of actually damaging anything, she seems to have killed her brother's hedgehog by accident, which is just weird. And there's even a joke about it where her brother's like, how old do you think he is? And she goes, oh, he's like 97 or something in hedgehog years. And then in her head, she's like, he was like 12. I murdered a tween. And it's so funny. Her inner monologue moments versus a lot of her dialogue. I mean, even her dialogue is fucking hilarious, but her inner thoughts are hilarious. They do this like little mini funeral for him, and they both don't even cry. Sid ends up like doing most, if not all of the talking, and they just seem so emotionally destroyed since their dad is gone, and I totally get that. It's just they don't know either how to talk about it or will they talk about it. It's very sad and it's upsetting. And I like even in these quick episodes, the little bit you get between the brother and the sister and just the whole family. We get another display of her powers after the funeral, but I can't, she has an upset moment after the funeral because of all the things she said and stuff like that. So she comes in her room and we get to see more of her abilities. And it's very much like she cannot control it, and it's just spiraling more and more. And, you know, Dina and her meet up later to go to this party, and Dina gets her to kind of open up, wear a more open shirt, and get to wear makeup and feel more pretty. And it's just very nice seeing them also reconnect with each other, because Dina's been taking care of Brad and trying to just pay attention to that. Did I miss something? I feel like I did. Oh, when I said that Stan tried to open Sydney's perspective about season 2, there's a very careful line that comes up later, which is he was talking about how high school is very much a theater performance, because all these people will never, in most cases, won't lead up to much. So he's like, just remember, everyone's just performing. It's not that big a deal. It's just high school. Which I think is a pretty good way to look at it. It would definitely make high school a lot easier. Sid, Stan, and Dina end up meeting up because Stan finally joins them at the party. And they look like they're having a fun time, but things are also still awkward between Sid and Stan. And you can see throughout this party that Sid takes a very long time to finally take her sweatshirt off because she is still not feeling comfortable. But being around Dina, very specifically, is giving her enough confidence that she eventually does take it off, and you get to see that she is a lot happier knowing that she is around someone that also likes her, or likes her as much as she thinks. Oh, Brad appears because he got hurt at the football game, so he was a little bit late to this. Dina and him were supposed to hang out, and he gets kind of pissy when he finds her there, which is funny, because why would you be pissy when you're there and you're not supposed to be there? Very interesting. And he also comes there really drunk, which is, you know, great. Tries to pull Dina away, but she's having fun with her best friend. She doesn't want to fucking go with him. So she doesn't, which is kind of funny because, you know, she very much is trying to find her footing and see that she doesn't have to be with Brad. She doesn't have to do whatever Brad wants, and she can actually be her own person in this relationship. And so Sid, after they break off because Dina does relent and goes after Brad, she goes out and starts playing basketball, and that's when Stan comes up and invites her to homecoming. And she tries deflecting and then just finally says yes. That's kind of where that ends. And she runs away to go find Dina, and that's when you find out that Dina and Brad kind of broke up, but it's like the high school breakup where it's like, did you really break up? That's when Sid kisses Dina. They just got really emotional, and she kisses her, and to me, I was like, oh no, you should not have done that. Because I've also done that. I have kissed people in the wrong time, and it felt very stupid, but I still have done it, so I definitely know how she felt. And then she ran away because she was scared. She didn't want, like, her friend to effectively kick her out of her life, and that's kind of what she did to herself. She ran away. Dina actually doesn't seem that put off by it, by the way. Just before we end that scene, she almost kind of looked like she was a little bit into it. And then Stan almost hits Sid while Sid is running away in the rain, which, man, she ran all the way out of this party to try and run home in the fucking rain. Bold of you. And we don't necessarily know it's Stan's car, we just know it's Stan's car, and he veers out of the way. She runs over, screams, confirming even more of her powers, and sending this telekinetic shockwave that knocks over a bunch of trees. And it's like, wow, what a way to fucking end this. Cause like, what the fuck? We get to see that like, she like really has powers now. We go to episode 4, and that's when we get to see Stan's montage of himself getting ready for the party that night. He's going in and out of being sure of himself, and then dealing with his verbally abusive, drunk trucker dad. And honestly, fuck this dude. He ends up punching Stan later that night, and we get a black eye for the next few episodes. And it's honestly like, I I hate in any form or fashion physical abuse because I know it's real, but it just happens so much in shows that it's like the fact that it's keep and continually put in shows, it's like, man, I don't know who you're spreading this awareness to because it's not other parents and shit. Like, are you telling kids that other kids get hit? Because no shit, we all have eyes. It is the adults who do not fucking listen. We all know. We can all see it. We all care. But it's the adults that are like, oh, well, he probably did something. No, fucker. Like, there is never a good reason on planet fucking Earth to hit a kid. Like, there isn't one. They may be coming at you with a weapon or whatever. We're out of those special circumstances. I am talking about no reason whatso-fucking-ever. No reason to hit a kid. It's dumb as fuck, and if you do it, you're a piece of shit, and I hope you know it. We get to what just happened, the end of episode 3, Stan seeing her powers, and Sid kind of scares Stan into not saying anything, and it's like, yeah, but you also kind of knew he really wasn't going to say anything, necessarily. I mean, who would he tell? Or what would he even really say? I saw Sydney knock a whole bunch of fucking trees down with her mind. Yeah, as if in the middle of bumfuck PA, you're not either gonna get shooed off or handcuffed and taken away? Yeah, okay. And Sid basically runs away and climbs up the old overlook, which Stan told us about a couple of episodes ago. I didn't really mention it because it's not that important. It is important now, which is why I kept it in here for now. He claims that one of his grandparents was one of the people that helped build it. Who cares? That just means your family was in this town for way too fucking long. You gotta change that. And he says he wants to change that, funny enough. And we get this little flash to another form of bloody Sid, except now she is at the clock tower, which is the overlook, not clock tower. She wakes up the next morning and is starting an argument with her mother already about herself feeling like she is Liam's mom. And there is just too many things that are said, and one of the things Sydney says is very much an implication that she wishes her mother was dead instead of her dad. So we get to her finally being at high school again, and Stan keeps pushing about her powers. I don't know why he would do that, clearly knowing she was upset in one part, but whatever. She almost has another episode, runs away, continues having an episode in the bathroom, and that's when Dina tries to make everything okay with her a little bit in the bathroom. Even tells her that her and Brad got back together, which, okay, like, why? It's so cringy. She's wearing his fucking football jacket, and it is honestly so stupid. Like, it's so cringe. Why are you fucking wearing it? She even pushes Dina off because she just doesn't want to talk about it, especially after hearing that they got back together. I mean, I wouldn't either. We get this moment later where the brother does something that I've done myself before. He makes food because, you know, the sister has just been... He basically overheard the comment earlier where she feels like she's his mom instead of her. So he made the food, and he was trying to give her some thoughts of like, hey, maybe you and mom just need to talk. And the sister's like, yeah, that's not a good idea. So Sid ends up, it's either that night or the next day, going to Stan for help. And that's when we get this little montage of her practicing, if not trying to practice. A little bit right before that is when Sid sees the punch from his dad, which is like, I wish she cared more, but she's also so fucked up right now that she doesn't even know what to do. They talk about what has triggered her episodes, her powers, and we even find out that Stan thought they were together already, which is, you know, just kind of sad, man. I don't know why you would think just after one sex section that y'all are together, but you know, young hormones, it kind of happens. And Stan, after hearing her triggers, goes, I'm gonna piss her off and try and get her to basically fucking kill me, because she almost does. She lifts up these 2 bowling balls and throws them at him, and he says definitely some things that he should not have, and that makes her run away almost into a man following her, which Oh my gosh. Why is a man following her? What does that have to do with anything? We'll find out. And we go to episode 5. Sid is trying to be invisible because she thinks if I, act invisible, I won't fuck around. And, well, that doesn't happen because immediately she goes to class and gets detention because Brad gets Dina detention and she gets herself detention trying to defend Dina, and then Stan gets detention to try and talk to Sydney. It's a really sad set of events, but it happened. In detention, Brad tries to make things cool with Sid, but honestly, dude, you're kind of a piece of shit, and no matter, even if I was trying to make things cool for my friend, I'm not going to be cool with you. I will tolerate you enough, but I'm not going to be cool with you. And that's kind of what Sid kind of says to him anyways. And that's when this really wrench in, the scenario kind of appears. This chick who fucked Brad, and she even had sex the night of the party, and we don't find this out later, later this episode. And it's kind of crazy because she does some shit stirring, gets Sid to run away, and that's when she does another burst, but it's in the library, and we don't find till later, but basically she kind of saw that shadow again that was following her last night, and she felt like she was going to be attacked or get attacked, and she just kind of reacted, She's feeling like someone is now following her. She almost saw them, and she is too scared to tell Stan or anyone else for a super long time. She finally gets Stan to get her to help get the security footage of what she basically just did. And while making this plan, they realize they need someone to help get the keys to get into this office. So they recruit Dina. They do this whole elaborate plan that's actually pretty funny. They get the keys, they get the footage. That's when we get to find out later what happens. They get the footage, and then Sid is leaving, they kind of disperse from everything, and that's when she finds Brad talking to this chick who they had sex. They did all this shit before too, and Sid walks in on it, and then Dina walks in, and Brad tries to get, Sid to keep it cool and everything like that. But yeah, why the fuck would I do that? Go fuck yourself. I don't want you to be dating my friend, especially, with that shit happening. Yeah, go fuck yourself. I'd happily throw your ass under the bus. After all that happens is when Sid finally tells Stan about what happened in the library, and she basically just says she was really scared, and after the presence finally welled up is when it all just bursted out. It's really a big metaphor for grief and just everything going on with her. Everything just keeps coming to the surface because she's not fully getting a moment to process everything. Episode 6 starts with them watching the footage over and over again, trying to find the person in the footage watching them. They can't really make it out. They end up dividing. Sid goes to school, and Brad tries to confront her, and it seems like she almost killed him, quote unquote, almost again, because she made all the lockers fly out. And it's like, girl, you couldn't have pushed him or anything like that. But I get it, she doesn't really have that much control over her powers. We then get to see Dina cutting her off a bit because Dina's trying to get info about what happened in the library. Doesn't really happen. They kind of separate a bit. That's when we get a little piece of Liam's story. It jumps over to Liam. We get to see him getting hit for trying to ask out a girl, also by the bully because, little sister's smart mouth that caused it, that kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, now there's going to be even more pain coming from that. And we get to see the school's actually abandoning Brad because apparently he got some type of sexually transmitted disease. But honestly, why would you do that anyways? What would that make you not able to be friends with that person? But I get it, he's also a generic piece of shit, so why would you want to do that anyways? Stan tries to help her with her powers more, doesn't really work. She goes to a therapy session where she tries to talk more about the shadow, but the therapist kind of indirectly moves it back to kind of what I was saying, it's a grief thing and she might be actually seeing her dad, not her, you know, shadow or whatever. We get home, and that's when the bubble over from Liam comes over to Sid, who is very much taking the brunt of this because it's effectively her fault that he got hit. So she's feeling very emotionally vulnerable after that. So she goes down, tries searching for more things from her dad because her therapist suggested she may need closure from him. Finds a lockbox of his and uses her powers to open them. Crazy. Girl's getting it. And after looking through some things is when her mom actually comes down and they finally have a real heart-to-heart where we find out that her dad may have actually been exhibiting psychic abilities before he died in such a way that he survived an attack that killed everyone else in his crew but him. And because I guess he could never figure it out, he finally kills himself. And all this stuff that has been happening to her dad actually is also happening to her. And the mom even notices it because Sydney says something. And they reconnect a bit, and then she tries to go write everything down in her diary. Sid can't find her diary. Ooh, what happened to the diary? And also, genuinely, where the fuck is that diary? I actually was thinking that when I first watched the show, but there's so little time, it kind of makes sense that we never get a full resolution on the diary. And the second to last episode ends with another part of the shadow watching her from outside her house now. So that means he knows where she lives. Cut to the beginning of the final episode, and basically after hearing all this stuff about her dad, she goes, well, instead of letting all of this stuff bring me down, fuck it. I am going to be happy. And I love her line because I said it for so long, which is, paint me yellow and call me fucking sunshine. I love saying that so much. Another one I like saying is, I'm a ray of black sunshine. It's just funny and just little dark humor and stuff like that. She's trying this, you know, intense false positivity, and she indirectly ends up admitting to Dina kind of sort of what happens in the library, and it's a little cute moment where she also talks about not really liking men anymore, or at least not right now, which kind of brings a little bit of hope to Sid. They don't talk about the kiss just yet, but they're getting there. They decide to go to homecoming together, and it's really cute, and there's a little montage there for Stan, Dina, and Sid where they're all getting ready. And then unfortunately we see another verbal abuse moment between the dad and Stan, and it's like, come on, I know it's really quick, but I really don't want to fucking see it anymore. And then there's just this random cutaway where Brad foreshadows the end of the episode by saying, tonight's gonna be fucking mind-blowing. And it really can only just be a foreshadowing moment, because why else would that fucking be there, you know? And we get this moment while Sid is finishing getting ready where we not only see her wearing her dad's dog tags, but we also see the mom. Throughout this whole series, she's always had her hair up and tight, and now it's down and flowing, which to me is an indirect sign that she is finally feeling more open and free and more connected to her daughter, because she's not quote-unquote uptight anymore. She's finally gotten off her chest. So I mentioned this already, but Liam is very quiet about his feelings towards his dad. The final moment we see of this is Liam acts a little bit like the man of the house while talking to Dina and her later as they're leaving, but he's also doing the last puzzle that him and his dad did together. And it's just very cute moments to see him in the background, even still having his own part to the show. Even though it's little moments, you still get this much from this little bit of character. And like, the more I talk about this show, the more I'm actually getting like kind of mad there isn't a season 2, because there's so much little details that can be extended in more episodes. So Sydney and Dina goes to the dance, and Sid does some real cool power move where she takes a random girl's drink, downs it, and throws it away. And it's just so funny because like she's finally just being herself and not giving a fuck. And I really liked that for her. We get to see her finally open up more. She's not wearing her sweatshirt, she's just wearing what she's wearing, and it's just so like cute to finally see her breaking out. This is where we also get a moment before we go to the last page. Fuck yeah. Stan has this little moment from a girl he invited instead of Sid because she finally backed out of it in another episode. He invited this other girl, and he tries doing the same conversation tactics he did with Sid with her, and you can see very well that he is not into this girl because she is not even remotely like Sydney. So after a few moments, the chick that's with Stan leaves, and Sid goes over and reconnects with Stan, and he even calls her a superhero, and it's just so cute to see them connect, and we get to see that they are definitely becoming friends with each other, and it's just very adorable that even though they don't like each other, they still can be great friends with each other. And you'll even see that in a brief moment, how even though this conversation had to happen, he is very above it and is mature enough to still care and be friends with her. So now we get Dina and Sid dancing, and this is when we find out Dina might actually be into that kiss, because she goes, well, I didn't not like it. And I was like, oh, so you liked it. Like, just say you liked it, because you definitely like her. And they're almost about to have this moment, literally until Brad arrives and just fucks the whole thing. And he starts going on this really quick tirade, and this is when everything just shoots into the ending. So I'm gonna be a little rapid fiery on this. He admits to cheating the night of the party. He outs Sid for kissing Dina, and also outs that Sid is very obsessed with Dina. But like, it's a mixture of friend but also lover type way. Like, she could be totally told no from Dina and actually be fine. Like, there is moments where you actually get to see that. Because he's only reading her inner thoughts, he doesn't obviously know that. She's having daddy issues, and Stan actually tries to get Brad to stop, but he knocks this dude out. And I'm just like, Stan, no! But it's still great that Stan even does it, because you get to see that Stan does care about her still. And just as he is about to out her about her powers, she straight up blows up his head. Like, full on head explosion. If you ever saw The Boys, straight up just like the head popper. And it's kind of funny because that same little kind of thing happens in The Boys as it does in this show, which is nosebleed first and then head explosion. So it's kind of funny that that little correlation even happens. Sid runs away, and that's when we get connected with episode 1 and 2's opening of her being covered in blood. And she runs herself to the Overlook, and this is where it ends with the Shadow Man appearing, and she turns around and says, should I be afraid? And the Shadow Man says, they should be afraid. Let's begin. And I'm over here like, where's season 2? I want to watch this fucking show. Like, I loved this show. Even though it's very fast, there's a lot of teen drama that happens. I love this show. It's just really great, all the stuff that happens, and it's just really exciting, all the little pieces you get to catch in the background. Like, I almost wanted to do an Easter egg video for this show if I wasn't just doing the review. I know I should have given my review 8 out of 10 at the beginning, but for this one, I really think this show is probably a 9 out of 10. It's just too short to be a 10 out of 10, and it's not continuing to really get more and be a 10 out of 10, but it's a really great show. I suggest tons of people watch it. If you want to see something with telekinesis, grief, things like that. It's a really interesting show. I highly recommend you watch it, and I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace, guys.